Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting of June 22nd, 2023. My name is Vern Crow, and I am the chairperson of the commission. The Planning Commission is a citizen body appointed by the City Council. The commission is empowered to make final decisions on certain matters, with these being appealable to the City Council. On other matters, the commission acts in an advisory role to the council, with the council making the final decision. You will have an opportunity to address the commission during the public hearing portion of the meeting. Your testimony is appreciated and encouraged. The commission acts from a written agenda. You will need to fill out a yellow speaker card and give it to city staff if you wish to speak on an item. Copies of the agenda and the speaker cards are located on the table just inside the main door to the council chambers. At this time, if you could please silence your cell phones. There are 7 members appointed to the Planning Commission, and at this time, I will ask the commissioners to introduce themselves and state the district they are representing, starting from my far right, Commissioner Crow.
John Crow, Mayoral District.
Commissioner Cole.
Tom Cole, Barrel District.
Vice Chair Nyberg.
Edwin Nyberg, Choya District.
Commissioner Nowakowski.
Martin Nowakowski, Yucca District.
Commissioner Gears.
John Gears, Ocotillo District.
And Commissioner Hooper.
Brian Hooper, Saguaro District.
And I am Vern Crow, chairperson representing Cactus. Let the record show that all the members of the Planning Commission are present. The Planning Commission receives staff assistance from the Planning Division and the City Attorney's Office. Now, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on an item not on tonight's agenda? Okay, having none, we'll go on to the approval of the minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes for May 25th, 2023, regular meeting of the Planning Commission?
Mr. Chairman.
Vice Chair?
I would approve, I would support approval of the minutes.
As written?
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Perry, are there any withdrawals or continuances this evening?
Chair, I would like to retroactively second his motion so we can approve the minutes and move on. We missed the second.
You missed a second? Okay. Tawanda, did you get that? All right. Ms. Perry?
Good evening, Chairperson Crow and Commissioners. We do have one request by the applicant for a continuance on application, missed it here. On application CUP 23-04 to be continued to August 24th, 2023, Planning Commission public hearing.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, the purpose of the public hearing is to provide interested parties an opportunity to present testimony for the commissioner's consideration. We will follow the same procedures for each item, and those procedures will be, I will call the application number and the name of the applicant. Staff will present their report and answer questions from the commission. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation and answer questions from the commission. Other persons who wish to testify will be asked to do so and answer questions from the commission. The applicant will have an opportunity for closing comments. Staff will be asked for any final comments on the application and procedural guidance. I will then close the public hearing and ask for a motion prior to discussion, further discussion from the commission. If you wish to speak on an item that's on the agenda tonight, you will need to state your name and address for the record. Please be brief and to the point and avoid repetition. I reserve the right to limit the length of your testimony. All exhibits shown to the commission become part of the permanent record and must be submitted for the file. Large groups should designate a spokesperson, and applause or other disruptions will delay the hearing and will not be tolerated. We only have 2 public hearing items this evening. Our first agenda item is case number CUP 23-13. Mr. Taylor will present the case.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners,
This is the staff presentation for conditional use permit application CUP 2313. The request is for Planning Commission approval of Sunrise Montessori School and childcare with stipulations. The applicant is Mary Ellen Cooper, Sunrise Montessori School. The property owner is Dove of the Desert United Methodist Church. The property is located at 7201 West Beardsley Road, which is the approximate southeast corner of North 73rd Avenue and West Beardsley Road, approximately 8.5 miles northwest of City Hall. The zoning map demonstrates the zoning of the subject property is R3. Surrounding properties are also zoned R3. We have a combination of multifamily and single-family uses to the east. And to the west, attached single family to the east, attached single family and multifamily to the west, and Arrowhead Country Club to the south. Of course, Loop 101 is to the north. The arrow maps demonstrates the development patterns within the subject area, predominantly residential with some additional office type uses as well as recreation and commercial. This area provides a little bit clearer view of the existing layout of the property with existing improvements, including the worship center, secondary buildings, primary access onto 73rd Avenue, as well as secondary access to Beardsley Road, as well as improved parking drop-off lane. Again, the property is zoned R3. This zoning district is consistent with the general plan designation of medium-high density residential, which allows up to a maximum of 12 units per acre. The property, it does have an existing CUP for the approval of a church that was approved back in 1995. The property totals approximately 14 acres. It is the site, as aforementioned, of the Dove of the Desert United Methodist Church, which was constructed approximately 1996. Again, it's a worship center with multiple secondary structures. Build-out was originally anticipated to take several years, and it has not quite yet met full build-out. The project summary is very straightforward here. 75 students, business hours Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And again, the proposed uses will be conducted within the existing secondary buildings. The applicant's site plan, again, demonstrates the existing buildings, parking, and on-site circulation. And the applicant is not proposing any exterior modifications to the site. The applicant and the city have met all required public notification requirements. The applicant and staff received one comment in support. The nature of the support that I received was a property owner in the development to the east basically stating that they were happy to see that these secondary buildings, which haven't been recently used or underutilized, were being brought up to use again and would be utilized. There are 5 required findings to approve a conditional use permit application. Number 1 is consistency with the general plan. The subject property is zoned R3, which is consistent with the existing medium-high density residential designation in the general plan. The existing church and proposed school and daycare uses do not align with the general plan. However, those uses are permissible in the R3 district with the approval of a conditional use permit. Staff would consider the proposed uses not detrimental to the surrounding uses, basically the size of the property, the existing on-site improvements, the scale of the proposed uses, and the separation from adjacent uses. The property is adequately sized and improved to support the private school and daycare and comply with applicable zoning district development standards. Subject property has access to 2 public rights-of-way. Staff does not foresee detrimental effects given the scale of these proposed uses. Staff recommends approval of CUP 2313, subject to the following stipulation. Development shall be in substantial conformance with the project narrative date stamped May 18th, 2023, and site plan date stamped May 31st, 2023. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, that concludes staff's presentation of application CUP 2313.
Commissioners, Commissioner Cole?
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Taylor. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Sorry I missed your last meeting. Sounds like it all makes perfect sense to me, but I did note Ms. Blake's letter in general support of the project, but I just wondered, does staff pass along her concerns about the traffic light to our traffic department? Is that something you would forward?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Cole, we did pass that on to the applicant. In fact, the applicant can speak to a graphic that they will be providing to parents and caregivers to facilitate a counterclockwise circulation movement within the site. So basically, primary access would be off of Beardsley Road, circulate south to the existing secondary buildings where the drop-off lane is, and then continue eastbound onto 73rd, back up to Beardsley, and then a right out from there. So yes, we did discuss that with the applicant.
Thank you.
Commissioners, anything else? Thank you, sir. Will the applicant or applicant's representative please come forward, state your name for the record, make your presentations. If you have anything additional to add, welcome to you.
Thank you. Thank you for meeting with me. I appreciate the time. My name's Mary Ellen Cooper. I'm the owner and the founder, thanks Matt, of Sunrise Montessori School. I've been doing this for 43 years. I have one location on 47th Avenue in Thunderbird that I've been in that building for 33 years. And then we were at 83rd and Deer Valley in a different church, and now we're moving to Dove of the Desert. As Matt said, we have approximately 75 kids coming from about 60 families. Drop-off times vary, so there would not be a huge line of traffic at any one time. We vary the drop-off pickup times for that reason, so that it doesn't impact the neighborhood. And as Matt said, the parents are going to enter off of Deer Valley, go down a little private street to the drop-off area, drop off, turn around into their parking lot, go out to 72nd and then out. So we won't be accessing 70 to 75th through the neighborhood at all. We have children from 18 months through the 6th grade, and I don't know if you know anything about Montessori, but it's a method of education that was developed in the early 1900s by a woman named Maria Montessori, and she took a different view of educating children than traditionally. She watched how children learned and studied them, and then created materials and her method of education to foster learning in the best way possible. So Montessori's been around since the early 1900s. Like I said, I've had my school for 43 years. We see children as individuals, so it's a more individualized program with a lot of manipulative materials. We're really excited to be able to partner with Dove of the Desert. They've been very welcoming to us. They've made a lot of accommodations in moving their meeting rooms around and things so that our school can be there and occupy some of their space. So thank you very much. Any questions?
Gentlemen? Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
I don't have any speaker cards. Do you have any final questions, staff?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the public hearing for CUP 23-13 is now closed. Do I hear a motion?
Chair.
Commissioner Crowe?
Chair, I motion to approve CUP 23-13, subject to the conditions of the staff report.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Okay. Any further comments or discussions from the commission? Okay, hearing none. A motion and a second to recommend approval of case number CUP 23-13, subject to the stipulations as outlined by staff. I will conduct a roll call vote, starting from my far right. Commissioner Crowe.
Aye.
Commissioner Cole.
Aye.
Vice Chair Nyberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Nowakowski.
Aye.
Commissioner Gears.
Aye.
Commissioner Hooper.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Case number CUP 23-13 has been recommended for approval subject to the stipulations outlined by staff. Mr. Gruber, what is our next steps?
Chair, members of the commission, your action with respect to case number CUP 23-10 is final, subject to a written appeal received within 15 days.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next agenda item is GPA 22-13 and ZON 22-27. Ms. Lavelle will present the case. Yes, sir? Yes, I have a comment before you start from Commissioner Nowakowski.
Just want to reveal that I had a brief contact with representatives from Earl and Curley in regards to this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairperson Crow and Commissioners. Tonight I'll be presenting GPA 22-13 and ZON 22-27 for the residences at Westgate. This request is for a minor general plan amendment from medium density residential up to 3.5 dwelling units per acre to high density residential up to 20 dwelling units per acre, and a subsequent rezone from agricultural to planned area development. The applicant is Taylor Earl with Earl and Curley, representing Glendale Farms LLC. This vicinity map shows the property in relation to City Hall. This property is located about 3 miles west of City Hall, and it's located east of the northeast corner of Glendale Avenue and 87th Avenue. This is the current general plan designation for the site and the current zoning designation for the site. As you can see, the current general plan is medium density residential 3.5, and the current zoning classification is A1. But as you look at these maps, you can see that this area has a number of varying general plan designations and zoning classifications throughout. This aerial photograph depicts the project site. This site is it's zoned agricultural, and it currently has a large single-family home on it. To the west of the site is another agriculturally zoned property with a single-family home. To the north, across from a large retention basin, is a single-family residential development, and to the east is a Christian church. Now, if you look at the site kind of as a whole, if you look at the area, this area consists of small and medium-sized lots, typically single-family lots, multi-family residential developments, and a mobile home park. Okay, so this is a conceptual site plan that was provided by the applicant as part of the PAD approval. As you can see, this is a townhome project for 37 units. It takes direct access off of Glendale Avenue and through a large access aisle centralized that will end in a hammerhead. This townhome project will be a gated community. Each individual townhome will have its own garage, and there is guest parking that's located centrally within the site, along with amenities that include a pool and a tot lot and a dog park. As you can see, along the PAD provides for a reduced setback along the eastern edge of the property, down to 10 feet to the buildings, and that is abutting the church property. To the west, the applicant has provided 20-foot rear yard setbacks to provide a buffer between the single-family residential home to the west to the buildings. So the applicant has met all of the public notification requirements. They held a neighborhood meeting on April 10th. No one attended that meeting other than staff and the applicant. No comments have been received. Staff finds that this proposal is consistent with the goals and policies of the Envision 2020 City of Glendale General Plan. The project is guided by sound management, and it provides housing options that meet a range of socioeconomic needs for current and future residents. The infill development is context appropriate and promotes neighborhood-sensitive redevelopment. Located within a mile of the Loop 101 corridor and the Westgate Entertainment District, the proposal supports the goals of additional housing options close to employment opportunities. The proposed zone change is compatible with the overall trend of the area. Within a mile of the site, there's a mix of small, medium, and large single-family lots, varying multifamily developments, and commercial properties. This zone change is compatible and in line with the evolving nature of this important corridor and the area and the site. The pad utilizes creative and effective land use by designing a project that makes the most of an infill site. Circulation being circulated by a large drive aisle that ends in a hammerhead will allow for traffic to circulate in and out of the site while providing enough room for residents to exit and enter their garages safely. Through creative design, the pad optimizes the land available on a constrained site. Infill development can be challenging, and this site is no exception. The pad provides for the ability to redevelop the site to its highest best use through innovative design that is supported by the development regulations that are proposed. It provides a process that considers the site constraints and responds accordingly with the design in building and circulation systems. This site is primed for redevelopment. Municipal services are readily available within Glendale Avenue, and as part of the proposal, the applicant will be required to provide an additional 10 feet of right-of-way along Glendale Avenue to complete a 65-foot half-street in this location. Staff finds that the proposed general plan amendment of high-density residential 20 and rezone to planned area development meets the findings and is appropriate in scale and function for this transitioning area. Staff recommends the approval of GPA 22-13 as written, and staff recommends the approval of ZON 22-27 subject to the following stipulations. Development shall be in substantial conformance with the residences at Westgate PAD narrative, final copy, date stamped April 17th, 2023. A 10-foot right-of-way dedication will be required along Glendale Avenue to complete a 65-foot half-street. That concludes my presentation. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Commissioners?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Cole.
Hello, Ms. Lavelle. It looks like a very creative use of a very long, narrow property. And I know that this is conceptual, what you've shown us. I would just urge staff during the development approval process to really work with the fire department regarding their largest, heaviest apparatus when it comes to the final development of the project, because it just looks really narrow and really long that way, and those are challenging for working fire incidents. So that is all, sir. Thank you.
Commissioners? Commissioner Nowakowski?
Just curious if there was a traffic study along with this project?
So the applicant provided traffic analysis, and then at design review, there will be, once everything is worked out, then the transportation will determine whether or not they need to do any changes.
And you did say that they limited to 2-story.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Commissioners? Thank you, Ms. Lavelle.
Thank you.
Okay, would the applicant's representative please come forward, state your name for the record, and make any presentation that you need to add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For your record, my name is Taylor Earl with the law firm of Earl and Curley. Our address is 3101 North Central Avenue. Yes, that is it.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time and attention. And thank you, Christina, for your comments. So I just want to, normally we would just launch past the opening slide, but I'll just pause here for a second and kind of talk through when we first looked at this case, and it's been quite a bit of time. We've been working with staff for a while on this. The reasons we thought this was a great fit for this location. This is a product that Glendale doesn't really have a whole lot of, this type of townhome product. Glendale certainly has the typical garden-style apartments, even high-density apartments as it gets closer to Westgate, and certainly a good supply of single-family residential, and even getting some of the single-story bungalow product that's come through. But this is different than that in that it has its own garage space. And so those bungalows do have backyards like this product provides, but you are still in a sea of parking. And so this provides, everybody will have a garage attached in their units, so they will live, above the garage. So it does function differently. It's really a hybrid product that straddles that line between a typical single-family residential home and a more typical, multifamily. And we have found that studies have shown that the type of or one of the demographics that appreciates this product is single females, 25 to 40. It provides a safe environment. A lot of them will have pets, and even in an apartment complex, they're walking the dog out into the public space, maybe into the parking lot. This allows that pet to go right into the backyard during the day. For them to have that space, they can pull right into the garage. Now, that's just one of the demographics. We also find that young professionals were attracted to a product like this. And the location of this, as it relates to Westgate, is for people who want to have proximity to that type of activity and the dining and the entertainment options, but don't want to be smack dab in the middle of it. And there's certainly a market for that. And this firm has come through and represented projects right in Westgate. And then this is a product that would really kind of be in that second band where you still want to have density, you still want to have people supporting the dining and entertainment options, and people still want to live next to it, but maybe you want a little bit of separation. So that's where you bring the density down to more of that medium range. Only 37 units within this, so it is relatively small. It'll have a gated, as you approach, there'll be the gate on it. So it'll really have a small enclave type environment because everybody's coming in that main drive. In practice, this will be a community where people will recognize each other, right? As opposed to, maybe your subdivision and mine where you kind of maybe see some cars, but it just changes so often, it's hard to get a sense. You'll be seeing the same cars. So what that'll turn into is a feeling of, your neighbors, people that are there, and that will also contribute to the safety as well. To create a sustainable housing stock, you want to have different types of products. And in different seasons, one product may do well and other products may not do as well. And so having a diversity of products is important. And that's why I mentioned that this is a product that Glendale doesn't have a lot of. And so we think it's important. And I would say that a lot of work has gone to this as we've worked with staff on the design and different elements. And so there's been a lot of care. And this slide just represents, there's our site with the star there, and I just want to give sort of that global picture of the proximity that we do have to Westgate and to everything that's happening at Westgate. And of course, this commission knows well everything that's happening there, and one of the things that we've heard from as we've worked with the city over numerous years and projects, is that they still need additional support for dining, particularly during the daytime hours. And while we're not an office building and maybe supplied in that way, what we have found is that during the pandemic, more and more people are working from home. And so you are still bringing in with density additional support for daytime dining and bringing in people during the lunch hour and those types of times, because in the evening, you're going to be attracting from a much different group. And then, of course, as we look at the entertainment options, continue to need support. And then I felt like this deserved its kind of its own slides. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to really look at this, but I was able to actually go and do a tour, and it is as awesome as it looks from the outside. It will blow your minds. If it ever comes around that you can go tour it, do it, because my jaw was dropped. This is the type of project that you read about in the paper and you say, it's never gonna happen. It's just never gonna get funded, and it did, and it's moving forward. They have a full concert venue that they're putting in, and all these units that you're seeing around are all hotel units that you will effectively have a ticket to the show. It'll be added to your room cost for the night. You can bring people in. You will have essentially a box seat environment where you'll have food that will be brought in, essentially if you were in a concert box. This is actually the gentleman who's the son of the family they furnished out one of the rooms. I want to show you, give some of the high-end sort of feel. And I'm showing this not because this is our project, but rather to show kind of the nature of what's going on and that younger demographic that they're trying to attract, and the way we think we're complementary to bringing those types of individuals to Glendale and giving them a spot, and a type of product that we think works. This is the lagoon. They handed us out free samples of the special sand that was created for the project, which doesn't heat up to the same degree as regular sand. I'm excited in the summer. I'm going to pour it on my driveway and see if it works, but kind of the level of things they've gone to. And then it'll also bring in some additional retail that will be complementary to what's also going on. So ultimately, I'd ask this question: if this type of product doesn't work here, the question is where? This is truly unique, not just amongst Glendale, but I would say that this type of proximity and the entertainment district is really unique amongst the state. There may be some other places you could argue on the 101 has quite a bit going on, of course, downtown Phoenix, but I really think Glendale is unique in what it has. And so as you look around the valley, this is truly a unique location, and I think this type of product matches up so well with that. And so this question tonight is really about land use planning. We're talking about a general plan amendment. And of course, that general plan was put in place years and years and years ago, before Glendale moved forward on this initiative, before this body approved and the council ratified so many different approvals for entertainment and high-density housing and all the things going in there. So it is a land use plan that needs some looking at, and so we think we're coming in with an appropriate request. A lot of times those land use plans don't maybe get all the detail, which is why they're general in that sense. So diving now into the site. So this is right next to the site, and I just want to highlight that another reason that this location works is because you have a high-capacity arterial right next to this. You have 3 lanes in each direction, which is not common, but it's been specifically done for Glendale Avenue because of what Glendale Avenue is supposed to be. It's supposed to be a unique corridor where you do have a mix of uses along it. And you see that somewhat highlighted here. So as you go from east to west on Glendale Avenue, you start where you have retail and commercial opportunities, then the mobile home park, and then you get by our site and you keep going, you have apartments, and you have more apartments and office. And so the nature of Glendale Avenue as a corridor is unique. And so we think we fit in really nicely with that corridor. And then zooming in, I think this was mentioned that this is a challenging parcel. We would affectionately call these bowling alley parcels because of the way that they are, long and skinny. Now, you may at some point have thought, as you read through your materials, boy, it'd be great if that property to the west was included. And so I'll pause for a moment and tell you that there were efforts made over the last couple of years to include that property into this project, but effectively the owner communicated that wasn't interested in selling, but that my client would be the first to know when he was. And so there were extensive conversations. Even my client went to the property to look at it. So it wasn't from lack of effort, but this is America, and nobody has to sell. But I do think that that property will transition. I think these two properties, when you look at what's happening on Glendale, are sort of the oddities, the standouts of a different time when a lot was different along Glendale Avenue, and development has now come and surrounded these properties. And so it does make sense to allow a transition. And this is the adjacent neighbor to the east. This is the church, who we've had good communications with. They actually granted us an easement for a water line so we could create a loop through that property, so we've had good conversations with them. But it does show you a little bit of the sort of context along next to which this property exists. This is not just a small church property, it's a large church property, and more power to them, but it does have almost a quasi-commercial feel is what we're up against. And then this shows, again, sort of the difference if you were to drive down Glendale, this sort of idea of single-family sort of ranchette homes that are fronting onto Glendale Avenue. It's somewhat of a bygone era as it relates to Glendale. There's other places where it makes sense in the city of Glendale, but on Glendale Avenue, you're not seeing that condition because as more and more traffic comes on here, it's not exactly the place for single-family home planning right here. And then I wanted to drop this in here, and I put the blue box just to sort of kind of highlight the home to the west. I want to show you the thoughtfulness we went into, because look, at the end of the day, that property can stay there, and I think it will transition, but we've designed it in a way that even if it doesn't, it will be accommodated. The home itself is really just what's in the blue box, and if you look at the units that we have up against that, we only have really a relatively small number of units. And were this to develop with single-family homes, for example, you would expect that you would have a row of homes going up one of the sides, and the massing that would be up against that building would be relatively similar as it relates to the house. So even though we have more units as it goes further north, what's actually up against the home is, again, a relatively small number of units, and it wouldn't be that different than if you had single-family homes that were kind of up in a row, two-story homes with a single loaded street. The lots would be different sizes. But again, I also show you here that this is kind of a zoom in of that. And what I'll show is that we put in an extra setback on that side. So if you look at the backyards from on the left side of the screen versus the backyards on the right side of the screen, you'll see that those have different dimensions. And so I'll walk you through the reason we did that was both to provide variety. It provided variety amongst the site, but also really to accommodate what's to the west of us. And so this kind of shows that, again, 20 feet on the west, which is the 20 is being cut off, but believe me, it does say it, and then 10 feet on the right. And so I'll go back here. And so the way that's accomplished with the bullets here, so on the right, we made driveways on that side and reduced the size of the backyards. And then on the west side, we reduced the driveways and increased the size of the backyard. What that did is it pushed the buildings further away from the west property line. And that gave a full 20-foot setback. Under the current general plan designation, one of the associated zoning districts calls for a 20-foot rear setback. So we're not, somehow dramatically decreasing that setback. What this also does is, while every unit will have a garage, they all have a backyard. Some people want to be able to have a driveway because maybe they want to, do a little home gym inside the garage. Maybe they have some materials they want to park on the driveway. And there's other people that say, I'm getting this unit so I can park in the driveway. So we can accommodate both types of residents. And so by having the 10 feet on the backyard on the right side, that allows us to put in the full driveway, which allows for a different type of product. And then on the west side, we have that increased setback. Just a little bit of highlight on the amenities. Again, for a 37-unit project, we have a high level of amenities. And that's part of what a person coming into living this type of community is looking for, is they want to have a turnkey lifestyle, but also want to be able to have amenities. They don't necessarily want to have their own big backyard that they landscape, but have something that's common. And so in this, we have a pool, we have a dog park, we'll have a sports court, and these, of course, are just representations of the sort of level of quality that we would be achieving. And you see here, this is done into the middle of the site. You see where we have parking that's associated with that, which can also serve as guest parking. We also have a tot lot that you see there next to, just south of the pool. We have a barbecue area, and then sort of an open turf space. So I'll just kind of go through, these are the different amenities that each one will have. Garage for each home, front porch and/or balcony for each home, backyard, pool, sport court, seating area, barbecue, ramada, dog park. This is a grass activity area with seating, sort of unprogrammed, tot lot. We have 98 parking spaces for 37 units. And so we have a good supply of parking to make sure that everybody has all the parking that they need. So again, when you look at this list with only 37 units, I think it would stand up against most communities in the state in terms of the level of amenities for the number of units. Going back to here where we started, I'll just highlight a little bit more about the architecture. So one of the things that we work with staff on is getting good movement in the building, both as it relates to what faces Glendale Avenue, but then also as it relates to what faces internal. So you'll see that in here. You're seeing a lot of movement in the building, the varied roof line, and on the balconies, the different mix of materials. So all of this were efforts made through the design process to give it a really nice feel. It's pushed back about 20 feet from Glendale Avenue, and so it not only has some space, but also we've done the design so that it'll be a nice aesthetic as you drive by. And then the night view doesn't look as good on this big screen, but hopefully your smaller screens look good. And then this is the architecture as it comes into the center. This is where that pool area is. You see that sort of consistency of architectural differences and movement being carried throughout the site. This is a representative of the front elevations where you see the garages. And then this would be the back elevations. And I'm happy to go back to these at any point. So just a summary of some of the key points here. Glendale really has changed its vision for Glendale Avenue and the entertainment district. And so we think this is medium density is appropriate in what I would call the second ring of development around Westgate. Glendale Avenue already features a mix of uses and densities. We think this fits in nicely with that, given the context. And again, if not here, where? Additionally, the general plan calls for, it says, quote, infill development is a top priority. And so we think this makes use of a difficult parcel in a really good way. The way that it's fit in amongst its neighbors, not only do we have the increased setback on the west, but on the north, there's a canal area up to an open space. On the east, we have the church, and on the south, we have a roadway. And so as infill development goes, we have really good buffers built in, substantially on 3 sides, and then we've done what we can on the west side, putting in a full 20 feet. As first thing that we look at when we look at infill is it's always a challenge. That's why infill is there's a focus on infill, because it can be challenging to do those parcels. But we think we've really accommodated what's out there today. It allows proper development on a property that's already been built around. The city's sort of moved on around these properties. I think it allows for a fair transition. As I mentioned, the buffers that exist, Ettrick setback to the west, the height is limited to 2 stories. And again, the massing up against the existing home is comparable to what it would be if it were single family and it were developed with a row of homes in a single loaded street. And then of course, Glendale Avenue allow for high capacity. As I mentioned, shortage product in Glendale. This is really that hybrid between single family and multifamily. We think it'll attract, working professionals. They'll have disposable income, can come in and spend money in Westgate, which kind of creates that symbiotic relationship. And so we think this will be a community that will be highly desirable in terms of its design, its amenities. We think people will really want to live here. And so with that, I would ask for the commission to really consider the ways in which Glendale has changed and looking at the nature of how this area has transitioned over time, the nature of the parcel, and we think it's a fair request that's been well designed, given its immediate context and also given the broader context of Westgate, the entertainment district, the freeway, and everything that's going on in Glendale. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioners. Commissioner Gears.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So there'll be 2 and 3 bedroom units. No, they'll be full garages. Yeah. Do we have those spec'd out? Yeah, how deep they are? So we have quite a bit of guest parking throughout the site in different pockets, but then in addition to that, we've taken into account that if a guest comes over, they may well be one of the driveway spaces, but there's also additional guest spaces that are sort of disconnected from any of the units. They would be spread out by, they're targeted by the amenity areas, but they're spread throughout the site as well. And so that goes into that extra parking that I mentioned is all inclusive of the guest parking. Mm-hmm. So that is something that we have, and maybe staff wants to speak to the fire aspect. That is something that we'll have to work through with design review. I can tell you that the driveway itself is 26 feet wide. It's a lot wider than it looks because when we do the site plan, given the length of it, it really shrinks the scale of the exhibit. So it is 26 feet, which includes, there's a 3-foot sidewalk that goes into that 26 feet, but it's flush, so it's allowed to be essentially driven on. So it does have quite a bit of width. And as we go through design review, if there's need for a secondary access point, that's something that we'll have to address. There's not a whole lot of opportunities for that, and I think that's one of the challenges that we've worked through on other projects that are of this sort of same dimension, is that we get a waiver from the secondary access requirements that have to be a certain distance from one another, just because of the way that they're shaped. I think they're about 1,800 on the square footage. Yeah, so about 1,100 for the 2-bedroom units, and then I think it's about 1,600 for the 3-bedroom units.
Commissioner Cooper?
Are you able to buy these units, or is this going to be a rental property?
Yeah, so that's a great question. That ultimately is going to be market driven. So we will be putting a condo plat on it so that they can be sold. And it really depends on going to market with a product that, if the interest rates are high and if it becomes sort of ridiculous to sell them because they end up selling for $800,000, then there may be a period where they'd be rented, but with a condo plat on them, they can be easily transitioned into sale. So the answer is the market's gonna have to dictate, because this will probably take about 2 years before these ultimately go to market.
Okay. And then let's say they do go to sell. You're gonna have an HOA in there, obviously. Is there a way to prevent these from being vacation rentals? Because being so close to the entertainment district, what's to stop somebody from doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to get outside my lane just a little bit because I don't practice a ton in short-term rental law. But yes, there will be a condo association that would be set up under a condominium plat. And that is my understanding, this is still the case, that CC&Rs can override state law. So that if you have a CC&R that does not allow for short-term rentals, that can override the otherwise admissible allowance for you to rent them. Where you're finding problems is that communities that don't have that provision are now seeking to add it, and not only is there a difficulty in amending, getting the percentages, but there's also some new court law that might suggest that you can't do it. But if you're doing it out of the, and those are older communities that came out before. But yeah, coming out of the gate, that is something that can be added to the CC&Rs. Association. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Cole.
I have another question for staff. I appreciate your indulgence. Ms. Lavelle. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Earl.
You're also going to have to indulge me on my memory a little bit, but this project reminds me to some degree of a project that I believe were recommended do not pass on the Mastiff property Mr. Froke brought in front of us. I don't know if staff recollects that. I can't remember for sure, Ms. Lavelle, if it was your case. It may very well not have been. But it was a gated community, townhouses on 5 acres at 83rd Avenue and Camelback. And staff recommended that the commission do not recommend that to move forward. This project looks eerily familiar, and it's relatively in the same part of town. I'm just trying to understand in my head what the difference is between these two projects and why the previous project was recommended against and staff's recommending do pass on this one.
Chairperson Crow, Commissioners, fair question. I think the best way for me to address that is each application is reviewed, analyzed on its own merit. This particular site is truly, as staff would define it, as an infill project that has been vacant for a very long time. Previous applicants have come in and tried to develop it. We have had or requested potential developers to try to purchase the adjacent property, and they were unsuccessful with that. So for this particular site, we're looking at it being an infill and how it can work for the community as a whole. One of the things that staff and the applicant identified, the uniqueness of this project and what it provides for us as it relates to the variety in housing. It is a housing component that we do not have in this area. So it's a uniqueness that comes along with it in addition to an opportunity to develop the site. There are some other components that went with the other site that you're referencing that in our analysis, which was pretty much completely different than this one, and hence the reason why we can support this application, but was unable to support the other application.
Thank you for your explanation. Appreciate you indulging me.
Commissioner Nowakowski.
Commissioner Cole brought up a pretty good point. The property on 83rd near Camelback, the Mastiff property. At the time, we were arguing that the area, it was very culturally different. So with a lot of acre lots, and that was kind of like different. And what's happening now is a charter school is going into that property. So I don't know if that's for better or worse, or hindsight, or lessons learned for us all. But what was my concern with this property was the adjacent. So I always look at the, from the front door approach, how's it going to impact that neighbor right there? And I think you did a really good job in explaining that, the applicant did. And there has to be some kind of, for these infill projects, a trade-off, and the amenities with the pool, tot lot, dog park, and it is unique. It is a diverse, unique project. I haven't seen this kind of housing product described in Yucca forever, with each unit having a garage, the driveway capacity. I just don't see that. I saw the bungalows next to Kellis High School right there, and the multifamily, apartments going up, the 4,000 units along 91st. And my philosophy's always been like, if you can see Westgate, yeah, let's do it. But my main concern was with that adjacent property, and you kind of addressed it with the 20-foot rear setback. So I just want to, I'm most likely gonna recommend approval, but that is a concern, but the applicant's not here. No, I'm not the applicant, the neighbor's not here, no complaints, and that weighs heavily on the decision too, because it is all about the neighborhood's interest too. Thank you.
Commissioners? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Earl. I don't have any speaker cards. Are there any members of the audience that would like to speak on this item? Okay, hearing none, the public hearing for the case number GPA 22-13 and ZON 22-27 is now closed, and I will take a vote on each application separately. Do I hear a motion for case number GPA 22-13?
Mr. Chair, I move to recommend approval of GPA 22-13 as written.
Do I hear a second?
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend approval of case number GPA 22-13 as written. I will conduct a roll call vote starting on my right. Commissioner Crowe.
Aye.
Commissioner Cole.
Aye.
Vice Chair Nyberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Nowakowski.
Aye.
Commissioner Gears.
Aye.
Commissioner Hooper.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Case number GPA 22-13 has been recommended for approval as written. Mr. Gruber, what are the next steps in the process?
Chair, members of the commission, your action with respect to case number GPA 22-13 is not final. Your recommendation will be forwarded to the City Council.
Okay, do I hear a motion for case number ZON 22-27?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Nowakowski.
I move to recommend approval of ZON 22-27, subject to the stipulations.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Are there any further comments from the commissioners? Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend approval for case number ZON 22-27, subject to the stipulations as outlined by staff. I will conduct a roll call vote starting from my far right. Commissioner Crowe.
Aye.
Commissioner Cole.
Aye.
Commissioner Nyberg.
Aye.
Commissioner Nowakowski.
Explain my vote real quick.
Yes, sir.
My vote is about the diversity of this housing product, and you have brought forward two other projects that you've represented on Northern Avenue and on 75th, and each time it took in consideration the density. So I appreciate it on this, that it is medium density when it could went way higher and been argumentative. There's also staff to consider. Isn't there an easement behind the property, I believe with the irrigation SRP, that maybe could be an entrance or exit for the public safety vehicles that can exit into or out of that neighborhood? So maybe look into that. So with that, I vote aye.
Commissioner Gears.
Aye.
Commissioner Hooper.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Case number CON 22-27 has been recommended for approval, subject to the stipulations as outlined by staff. Mr. Gruber, what are the next steps in the process?
Chair, members of the commission, like the companion general plan amendment, the zoning case ZON 22-27 is a recommendation that will be forwarded to council.
Thank you, Mr. Gruber. Ms. Perry, is there any other business this evening?
Chairperson, Commissioners, there are none.
Staff reports?
There are none.
Commissioners, any comments or suggestions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Cole?
Thank you, sir. Ms. Perry, I really appreciate my time here, and from time to time, one time in particular, during my first term, staff was very thoughtful in bringing back to us projects towards the end of their construction phase or once they're on the market, just to give us kind of an idea. You know, we see the very front end of these projects, and then it's really not common for us to understand how they all come together. I'm kind of asking on the other side of that coin tonight. My neighborhood is becoming more and more concerned. I live 2 blocks away from the old Glen Lakes Golf Course, and I've seen a couple other projects around town that have seemed to gone fallow. This project is of great concern to the neighborhood, and apparently Homes by Town hasn't even been on the property, as far as I can tell, in months and months. And I know that's not under the strict control of the city on when a applicant like that with an approved project makes progress on that project. But as you can understand, it, you know, based on the history of that project, it is concerning to me and to the neighborhood. So if it's at all within staff's ability, I would just personally like an update. Perhaps the other commissioners would like an update on that project to find out when and if Homes by Town intends to come out of the ground with some product. So that's my concern, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot tonight. If it's not possible to do, I understand. I just appreciate some follow-up.
Through the chair, if there's a consensus, staff can put together a memo to send out to the commission in regards to that particular project.
Commissioners, any objections?
I would support that.
There you go.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, Commissioner Gears?
I have just another comment. On the other side of that, the project on 67th and Maryland that we just approved a couple of months ago is just going gangbusters. So the Gore project, I'm surprised how much they've done in such little time. So some of the projects we've worked on are really going good.
Commissioners, anything else? Okay, the next regular meeting of the, Commissioner Nowakowski.
Thought you were going home now, huh? So one thing, at the May meeting, I believe, the property at 75th and Bethany, it was voted down only because my no vote was because they were putting in a drive-through coffee. And when I learned that there was only like recommended 6 cars per drive-through lane, is there a way that the city can review that policy, look at it where it might have an impact overflowing onto, you know, major arterial streets like Bethany, that maybe there is something in design or something we can do in regards to that?
Through the chair, commissioners, you may or may not recall, because we've been working on the draft UDC for a long time, but that is something that is being updated in the UDC for the queuing to be increased.
Right on. And the other thing is we approve turning some of these lots, one in downtown Glendale and one, I believe it was 51st and Camelback, into car lots where they can sell cars. My concern is they present that there's going to be a few cars. There's nowhere for visitors to park in those now. And I'm not even sure that they're locally owned. I don't know if the tax dollars stay in Glendale and if they're based in another community city. So I'll be very critical if any lots wanting to sell cars down Glendale Avenue or elsewhere comes to Planning Commission. Just want to bring that to your attention.
One more time. Commissioners, are we sure? Okay. If there's no further business, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, say aye.
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 We are adjourned.
What?